Welcome to Let's Talk Global Business, the show in which we look at the economic and business trends connecting the world.
I'm Sarah Murray, Managing Director International at the Conference Board, the member-led global think tank that delivers trusted insights for what's ahead. Across Europe, a new generation of CEOs is emerging, leaders under 30 steering companies through the energy transition, digital disruption and changing investor expectations. But does being young at the top still raise questions about experience, or has it become an advantage in this decade of transformation? To explore that, I'm joined by Leopold Coppieters, co-founder and co-CEO of Skysun, a European B Corp that helps businesses go solar through fully financed turnkey installations. Welcome.
Hello, Sarah.
So to kick us off today, let me start by asking you a question. Being a CEO under 30, does youth limit leadership or fuel it?
I think it fuels it in the sense that as a scale-up, our average age is rather young, and I think it helps to have a sense of proximity with the rest of the team. That being said, we also have some of our core managers that are older than I am, and that brings a lot of quality also to the team. And so, yeah, I think it's rather an advantage. It helps us to recruit even amongst the kind of the elder part of the workforce. I think they're happy to be with a younger leadership team, and there's mutual respect from that. So it's a different leadership style, of course, with someone that's probably 45 and I'm 30. Naturally, I'm not going to be strong arming him into anything. So yeah, it's an interesting relation.
Yeah. It's such an interesting point, and I think it reflects a broader shift that we're seeing globally. According to a Conference Board report, the share of CEOs in their 30s and 40s is the highest it's ever been, especially in the US, especially in like the tech and the healthcare sectors. And I think it kind of shows that boards are becoming more comfortable with younger leadership, even if it means rethinking governance and mentorship along the way. But before we look at the bigger picture, could we just start with your journey? How did this all begin, and what led you to become a CEO before 30?
So it's a bit of a university story. We started with my co-founder Arthur when we were just about 21.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we started rather young. We started the company in 2018, raised 200,000 in seed in 2019. We were able to bootstrap with that amount for a rather long time. Of course, you can't imagine having exponential growth with 200,000 of initial capital. It was rather slow, but we were still able to scale the business to a team of around 15 people with break-even, profitable, and that's when we decided to raise funds kind of seriously and do a Series A, which happened last year, and we raised 17 million. So there was rather a large gap. But so to answer your question, which was how did it happen? I think it was kind of, we got lured into it slowly. It was slowly scaling the business, and it wasn't ever a kind of a massive decision of let's from scratch raise a couple of million euros and just go for it. Back in the days, I was a carpenter. I got a passion for woodworking, and so I had a small business that was doing carpentry. So I was working on rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
And my co-founder Arthur was working in real estate, and I think we both wanted to have more impact in what we were doing, and that's how we kind of got started. And at first it was a good business to start as a young professional, because we had tariffs from the government, so there was kind of a guaranteed revenue by the government, which of course helped tremendously with financing, and also gave us a lot of help with sales, because it was kind of an easy sell. It was really a win-win for the customer.
I think your story really echoes what we've been hearing from a new generation of founders. You know, people that start out early, there's a desire to solve a real world kind of pain point. You know, it's not necessarily about the titles, it's this mission. And I don't know if you've read this big think piece from Yoshiro Kato, and he says that the best young leaders succeed by finding the biggest pain point in their industry, really learning fast, stretching outside of their comfort zone. So it sounds kind of very similar with your story as well.
In our industry of energy transition and renewable energy, there's such an evolving complexity on both technology that is just changing every few months, but also legislation. That it's not like you can it's not like we had identified a pain point 8 years ago and that we're still going on that pain point. We can't either say that we've pivoted many times, but we've really had to kind of, within the same industry and within the kind of same service, target different things and different pain points at different moments. And still now we're always in a situation where we kind of try and look at what's going to happen in a couple of months and change quite often our approach.
A lot of agility and innovation.
Yes, and resilience. I would say you got to have a bit of a thick skin, because it's long-term projects. It's infrastructure, building these projects. It's, if you're a SaaS software, well, you do your sale and that's it. The sale is done. Well, you have to maintain your software, of course, but the money comes in quite straight away. When you're what we do, which is solar as a service, another kind of SaaS, when we do a sale, the first revenue will come in a year, because you have to permit, you have to connect, you have to get all those grid authorizations, and you have to get out there and get a crane and put things together. And so it's a long-term play.
So you lead the company as a co-CEO. How do you and your co-founder divide the responsibilities and stay aligned?
We've always been very complementary. And I think that's something that from the get-go, when we sat down and said, okay, should we actually do this? Should we build a company together? We really tried to make sure that there was all his strength, his strong points were rather my weaknesses, and the other way around too. And so today, Arthur is rather, we like to summarize it in a very visual way, which is front office, back office. Arthur takes care of everything that needs to be taken care of, and that is probably less visible, but that is crucial for the structure of the company, which is financing, legal, insurance, all those things that need to fall into the right place at the right moment for the company to exist and the projects to be financed and so forth. And then I'll be more on the front office. So speaking to you guys today, doing sales, marketing, and being a bit more vocal on what Skysun does.
Do you know, that shared leadership model, I think, is really interesting and reflects a broader shift that we see about kind of collaborative decision making, but collective leadership, playing on the different strengths, stepping forward, stepping back, but really, playing to the different diverse strengths that you have at the top.
I think it works also quite well, coming back to what we mentioned previously with the leadership style and having well, people with more experience than we have on our team, that are elder and that come with all their background. As you say, decisions are made quite collectively, and if we have to put our feet down, we do, but it's very rare.
So let me ask, when you were first pitching to clients or investors, did age ever come up?
Well, we were starting to grow a beard, so it was early days. So I really think that this situation with government subsidies that made it so initially. So just a word on the business model: we finance solar power and battery projects, and then we own those projects over the long term, and then we sell back the electricity over 10, 15, 20 years. So initially, when we started in Brussels, there was a massive subsidy scheme, and we were actually able to pay off the bank just with the subsidies, which meant that the electricity that was produced by those projects was actually free. And so we would go ring on doors and say, well, listen, if you sign here, I'll finance it, I'll operate it, I'll take care of every paperwork, everything, and you will get free renewable energy for 10 years. How does that sound? So it was rather an easy sell on that side. And I think that probably compensated quite a lot for age and lack of experience and so forth. And it's what enabled us also to get our first references in a B2B market. It's something we didn't say earlier, but we're specifically B2B, specifically industrial and commercial, which means that you have to have a strong reputation. It's a few big projects per year, and we did see that there was kind of a bottleneck of which is good, the first project to go through. And then once you kind of close a big name, then everyone kind of lets go and say, okay, it's fine. If they went, we'll go. And then all the sales kind of untangled themselves.
Yeah. I think credibility is still such a hurdle for many younger CEOs, but the research shows experience still carries weight in the boardroom, but the younger founders are proving that credibility can come from competency, transparency, results, and I think many investors now associate youth with agility, with purpose, two things that traditional hierarchies can sometimes stifle. So there's this fresh energy that I think is comes across much more with founders, that are a bit younger and more adaptable and quicker on their feet.
We should probably also acknowledge that different companies and different company sizes need different people at the top.
Yes.
I for one don't think I would be very competent as the CEO of a company of around 100 people. There's a big difference, I think. So today I think we're evolving with the company, and that's always the big question: is how far can a CEO, a founder, evolve with his company?
Yeah.
At the moment, we're still having fun and we're still delivering, so it's great. But I'm very aware that there will come a time where either I'm not having fun anymore and I don't want to go further, or I'm just not good enough for that specific, or maybe the enough is not true. It's not good enough, but just not good at that specific kind of phase. And I'm better off just passing the baton and starting over with something else.
So the energy transition is obviously shaped a lot by EU policy and financing frameworks, as you've mentioned. How do those regulations shape the way that you make strategic decisions and keep innovation moving inside Skysun?
A lot, immensely, because you mention EU policies, and then those policies are interpreted by local governments, and then the grid operators take that and have their own way of seeing it, and so at every level in different countries it can be quite different, and especially in a country like Belgium, it's a bit of a headache, because you've got three regions that all each have an interpretation of what the federal government said that Europe said, and then the grid operators do their own thing, and so it's rather complex markets. In France, it's a single market, which is something that, as a Belgian citizen, when we went to France, we had a look and we said, "Oh, that's cool." It's easier to develop at scale, I'd say. But so yeah, it shaped a lot of what we do, because, as I mentioned earlier, in the early days, energy was free. We got the subsidies and we were handing out megawatt hours. Electrons were free in our model. As the government in Brussels specifically moved away from that scheme and got it down, which is what had to happen, of course. It's not a market if it's subsidized forever. So they moved away from it, and that pushed us to now become a real player in providing electricity and being a seller of electricity. And so we have a license to sell that electricity. And in France, where they still have a lot of tariffs, a lot of help from the government, it's something that people look at and are interested in and kind of admire, is that we're able to finance projects without the help of the government, because there's there's a complex game there. Is when you have the funds from the government, then the banks are very happy and it's easy to get the money to finance your projects. When you don't, you need to secure a contract with a specific company, and that's a risk, of course.
Yeah.
There's a higher risk that the small medium company from a random village defaults on payment rather than the French government, and so those things have huge impact on the way markets develop, because it has impact on sales, but it's also has impact on financing and the ability to leverage bank debt and to finance the energy transition.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating how you're navigating the regulation and innovation together, because that's exactly where I think young Europe's energy leaders are standing out. They're operating in a policy-heavy environment, but they've still got to kind of adapt and be on top of everything, and adapt to the change, and then still kind of make sure that business model is sound.
To give you a good example of that is that I mentioned we raised a Series A of 17 million euros in the summer of 24.
Mm-hmm.
In the business model, there was, I think, not a single mention of a battery. We were solely a pure solar power player, and it was not even mentioned. It was just not in the business plan. Fast forward a year, and now we've sold a bunch of batteries. For example, just to give you a number, it's really been something that's exploded for us. We've developed around 40 megawatt peaks of solar since our inception in 2018. We started doing batteries in January of this year, of 25, and today we've sold for 75 megawatts of battery. So it's huge. We did in less than a year, we did double it. It's not completely comparable, but just to give you an idea of how fast things can evolve, which leads us now to say, well, we were planning for the Series B in 27, maybe even 28. But we're maybe now considering accelerating the Series B and having it earlier, because, well, we're going to be spending more to develop these projects, and it's a good problem to have.
It's a very good problem to have.
Yeah. So it's fun times.
Yeah. So looking back, what was an early mistake or setback that most shaped how you lead today?
A big mistake or setback was clearly going B2C for a while. That's actually fun because it's a good story. And it ties to the US. Back in 2019, so a year after we started the company, we had our first B2B project, and I went to the US for the summer. Spent beautiful time in Yosemite, and it was great. And thought, if I'm going to the US, I might as well take a week to go and meet with solar industry of San Francisco. And so I met with a guy from Sunrun, which is a huge developer and independent power producer in the US, and came back saying, well, we have to go B2C. I mean, what a market. Let's do it. And it was a mistake. It was a terrible mistake, because it was hard to know if the clients would be bankable. Very big difference compared to the US and Europe. In the US, you have credit ratings for every citizen. It's literally written on the forehead. Can you pay me back or not? In Europe, that's classified information. Yeah. So it's hard to go and finance a project on the house of someone if you're not sure he's going to be able to pay back. So lost a lot of time on that, which it was kind of a dead end. But every mistake has a silver lining, and Mike Sachadev, which is the person I'd met in San Francisco at Sunrun at the time, is now on our board of advisors. He became chief product officer at Sunrun, so has amazing experience, and is now sharing this with us back in Europe. So there's always a good price for a mistake, I think. You always learn.
I think it's a great lesson, and indeed, like, growth happens when you see setbacks as strategic learning, not failure. I think that mindset is really important. I imagine that you're in a market where speed can be a competitive edge. How,
Absolutely.
how do you balance like quick decision making with responsible or sustainable growth?
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act. It is absolutely about speed. If you think of batteries, for example, really the 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 winner takes it all in terms of grid connection.
Hmm.
So there's a limited capacity in every geography, and so you need to be the first one to get the green light to connect your asset. You can only ask for a grid connection once you have an urbanistic permit, once you have a kind of a the stamp of the county or local authorities say you can build. Then once you have that authorization, you ask the grid to connect. So it
Hmm.
means that you're developing your project for a long time and spending a lot of time and energy on something that maybe if you come second, you'll be
Hmm.
just too late. Because
Mm.
if there's another guy doing the same thing across the street and he gets to that stage of asking for connection an hour before you, that's it, you're done. So it's absolutely about speed of finding the land. So
Hmm.
finding the real estate to build the project, and then very fast getting the permit to to build, and then asking for connection. But if you don't get connection, everything you've done for 6 months is lost.
Gosh,
So it's really a speed game.
yeah. And I just want to move on to like kind of company culture. So, you've had to build a company culture and you need a lot of energy in the organization. And how do you channel that into, disciplined execution?
Um, how do we channel that? I think being hands on and being having management really in the team. There, it's not micromanagement, but it's definitely being on the battlefield together helps a lot to give that rhythm and to really strive to go fast and push for short deadlines. Um, yeah, because the process I mentioned, it gives it comes from very lengthy uh, administrative steps. And
Hmm.
when if you've ever renovated anything in your flat or asked for something from a government, they usually say they have like 3 months to get back to you.
Yeah.
And if you have that 3 months delay, but a couple of times over the different administrations, then the only thing we can really work on is what's the buffer between those steps.
Hmm.
And so it means that you need to be really in a good state of rapid fire so that when a file comes in with the first stamp, you need to wrap it up and send it back out to the next administration in a super
Yeah.
short period of time. That's where you can win because everyone has the same delay of administration. But
Hmm.
if you can wrap up a file and send it back out in a week, then you're beating another company that's taking a month. So that's where we try to be fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you're working, with investors and regulators, what's your approach to and maintaining the trust?
Transparency really helps. We also find that transparency helps us manage. I recall in the early days we we would have a tendency to kind of different steps would be everything would be a bit more pink, a bit more a bit better than it was really like a bit like a CV, like a CV when you write your CV, you're not saying anything wrong, but you're kind of pushing everything a bit further than it is, which is a bit the fake it till you make it kind of approach. And I think it has its space and it's needed in the beginning, but nowadays we really make a point of having everything the same so that the numbers are and the numbers and the state of the business is crystal clear to everyone on the board and I mean on the shareholder side and in the executive side. because it can be dangerous also to, when you're always in pitch mode of everything's great, everything's great, everything's great, you can also kind of close yourself down to what should be done and what has to. So having a reality check of having one truth and full transparency is important, and it's helping everyone in the end. So I think that builds trust also.
And I think you're right. That's where transparency really matters. The conference board did a report, and in our governance data, it shows that, while younger CEOs might not have the experience, they really do offset that through the open communication. Really kind of sharing, the information, staying honest. It's really important. Yeah. When you look at the global energy transition, do you follow like which regions, which companies, what do you think? Who do you think are setting the pace? China, for example?
Globally?
Mm.
Well, there's no question about the fact that China is setting the pace in terms of technology, and more than technology, about affordable technology, which in the end is really what matters, because it's all very good to have a beautiful tech that, but if it's only affordable for satellites and space use, I mean, it's not gonna change much in terms of a really kind of down to earth transition.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that they've been the most impactful. When I see the cost of solar that has just plummeted, it's been just impressive to see this. And when I say plummeted, it's like, just to give you an idea, the first solar panel that we bought and installed, financed in 2018. So it's roughly two square meters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the surface, and the cost was of something like 40 cents for that surface, and the power output was 270 watts. So if you really want to summarize, it's 2 square meters, 40 cents, 270 watts. Nowadays, you pay 10 cents, so you pay a quarter of the price. And for the same surface, the output is around 500. So it's double the power output, a quarter of the cost. It's just ridiculous how much more cheap and efficient it's got. And what we've seen happen over the course of close to a decade in solar is now taking place on batteries at an even more rapid scale, because I think they've taken kind of confidence in seeing what was possible with solar, and so now they're pushing it to storage cells. And so it's really amazing.
Many startups reach a stage when they need more structure. What systems or habits have you thought about, to put in place so that you can scale but not lose that agility? Are you there yet?
Yes, yeah, we've been there for a while now. I think you get there. You get there straight away. Really, it's just a question of when you realize that you actually need it. But I think any company should have from the get go some sort of structure, and it's just that you can get away with not having it for a bit, and then at some point it catches up. But really, if I was to start up a new company again, I would set up the same kind of rules, which is something that another mentor, and maybe to start with mentors, is a great way to get things going in terms of structure and having people kind of challenge you. And one of the things that we've put in is it's a US system actually. It's called Traction. It's a book by a guy named Gino Wickman, and it's pretty much just a management basics of setting targets on an annual basis, cut it down to quarters, cut it down to per person what needs to be done for those quarter objectives to be done, and then weekly meetings and just it just kind of trickles down in the organization and gives everyone the right seat, the right person. It kind of just gives you a shared vocabulary. I think a lot of good communication comes back to common vocabulary, and so having from for now 3 or 4 years we've been using this traction book, and everything kind of that's been the shared vocabulary. Just any manager that comes in reads the book, and that's how we talk.
It's really about building that clarity, isn't it, within the organisation, that everyone understands the language, the terminology, the expectations.
Yeah, and it's I think it's hard to also make sure that everyone in a company knows what needs to be done, where we're going, and there's a first step, which is to have shared values and a shared mission.
Yeah.
And then it has to translate to operationally what do we need to get done, what's the priority for this year, and what's the priority for this quarter, and then what's the priority for this week. And that's much harder.
Good. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you if you could offer one key takeaway to global executives from this conversation, what would it be?
To which executives?
To executives from around the world.
Well, I think I'd like to take that opportunity to insist on the fact that energy transition and environmental transition, I mean, it's not for the you don't do it for the good looks or for the karma and the kudos. You do it because it makes sense, and strategically, if you don't do it, I mean, you're out. You might think that you're not out for the next 5 years, and you might get away with it for a bit, but in the long run, it just doesn't make any sense not to be embracing this change. It's I mean, if you agree with science, then that's something you really need to take into account and get going. And it's a world of opportunities too, which is fun. I see it as for my generation. I think it's one of our it's the battle of a generation, and it's something that maybe my parents' generation didn't really have in their days, because it was after the Second World War and everything was rather stable. But yeah, today that's really our thing. We need to figure this out.
Yeah,
there's no other way.
That's such a great end and close to our discussion. And I think from what we've heard today, youth and leadership, there is no liability to it. It's a source of renewal. You're fueling innovation, purpose, and you're showing a great deal of adaptability. Congratulations on the success that you've had so far, and I wish you well in the next stages.
Thank you, Sarah.
Of the company's growth. But that brings us to the end of this episode of Let's Talk Global Business. Thank you, Leopold, for sharing your insights. You can find more content on leadership, innovation and the energy landscape by visiting conference-board.org. Until next time on Let's Talk Global Business.